Part 2 of the Crystalline Bio Shift. Archangel Metatron via James Tyberonn. We say again. The current activation of the crystalline Saturnian system is now once again assuming a major role in the crystalline shifts of the planet. Specifically in the environmental alterations and energy shifts that will code the crystal grid as well as the great Crysto sun disks that are located within the crystal vortexes of Arkansas and Brazil. This synergizes symbiotically with the biological shifts in the human body into an opalesque crystal-silicon base. Saturn is the most crystalline of all influences, of all planetary spheres in your solar system. Saturn has always differentiated itself and has always played a major role in the shifts of the Earth and humanity within the duality phase of the Earth. Saturn is therefore a great energetic and frequential factor in the crystallization of humanity. This occurs for humans by induction into the crystalline auric field, through piezoelectric crystal Hertzian standing waves and non-Hertzian Saturnian waves. And indeed, dear humans, your physical biology is shifting. You are transitioning to a silicon base from the current carbon-based biology. Now, as we mentioned briefly in part 1 of this message, your Edgar Cayce spoke of the new body type emerging in the 21st century, in a reading provided more than 7 decades ago. And indeed that is now taking place. And it is a logical correlation of crystalline physics, that the drivers of the human biological shift will be initially coded in the massive crystalline deposits on the Earth. Therefore, it is quite logical that the crystal vortexes of Arkansas and of Brazil will serve as the key, the primary epicenters of shift, in facilitating the DNA changes of shifting human biology from carbon to silicon base. You too are shifting. Masters, do not assume that the crystalline shift biologically is only occurring in the new births of what is termed the crystal children. The Human Genome Project recently released academic findings after long study. The findings stated that human DNA was changing, and that the environment of humanity was one of the factors in DNA shift. We tell you they are only just beginning to understand the mechanics of shift, and are as yet many decades from recognizing the cosmic, multidimensional and divine aspects that factually contribute to such change. But we tell you that the crystalline change is happening in many of you, not simply in newborns, but also to humans of all ages, all races, all genders in the carbon-based biology to the new. The new Earth is triggering the new biology, and the new biology is bringing about change in all of you. Your bodies do in fact completely replace themselves every 7 years. There is not a single cell in your body that lasts more than 7 years. They regenerate. You regenerate your physical vehicle. And that vehicle is influenced through induction, through the influences of codes, of coherent light, of all of the shifts occurring since the birth of the new Earth, 3 years ago. Crystal-coated structured water. The natural living waters beneath Arkansas are a very rare natural occurrence of crystal-patterned, sacred geometric structured waters. Most of you attribute the wisdom of Japan's Dr. Emoto as having been the first in modern times to reveal the living nature of water with the ability to form benevolent crystalline patterning. In truth, Dr. Marcel Vogel was the first in your current time to rediscover this attribute. We tell you that waters that flow in the subterranean springs and aquifers within the crystal vortex of Arkansas are extremely beneficial structured waters, living waters that carry the crystal codes. Those of you called to be in the crystal vortex are encouraged to drink the waters and bathe in the springs. These uniquely structured waters not only offer astonishing health benefits, but provide a quicker induction of the codes of bioshift. For the waters of Arkansas, the structured waters of the crystal vortex are indeed a rare occurrence of coated liquid crystals. Yes, liquid crystals. Again we emphatically share. that those of you drawn to the Arkansas vortex have an opportunity of bathing in these remarkable waters. Waters teeming with crystalline life force. These waters not only carry the codes of shift, but indeed carry and contain attributes of great benefit, including rejuvenating the cellular structure of your physical bodies, of extending life by vitalizing and amplifying life force by induction, by absorption. But to be clear, the Crysto Bio Shift first is inducted into the etheric body, into the complex circuitry of the auric field of the human. The human must first shift to the crystalline aura, and the codes are then transferred into biology, into DNA stranding. The induction is received via the Saturnian system, into the utterly astonishing crystals of Arkansas, and indeed these extraordinary crystals are quite unique in this capacity and thus extremely powerful. They have been tuned for this process. For the rejuvenation technologies of the Atlanteans was done in a similar format, albeit in a much more sophisticated, much more technically complex lab setting, using massive Phi crystals, and a rare phosphorescent compound. And we add as a caveat, that this living phosphorescent mineral is also found in Arkansas, in deep subterranean recesses. It glowed in intervals with blue-green iridescence, and was active in this state for limited timings. It was highly prized, and difficult to retrieve. The Atlantean hobbits were most helpful in retrieving this essence. But back to our topic and point. The basis of the core of the energy sources in the shift are similar in many ways to the rejuvenation process. Human shift in the present will occur over a more gradual process, whereas the rejuvenation of bodies in Atlantis took place in a matter of days. Atlanteans could live and did live up to 12,000 years. Indeed, your Edgar Cayce speaks in a specific reading of a priestess living over 8,000 years. The crystalline coordinates and codes are within the Arkansas crystals and crystalline waters. The technology was Syrian Pleiadian, and indeed these are the heritages of the Law of One. And they are with you yet. It is why there are underground bases of the Syrian Pleiadian Alliance in the area. The rare mineralogical collation of natural quartz crystals, diamonds and magnetic lodestone is connected to sacred geometric pyramids to coordinate the natural projections of these energies. And these intricately intertwine the energies in symbiotic juxtaposition with Tesla-type non-Hertzian Christo-Saturnian waves and standing Christo-piezoelectric Hertzian waves. The energies have existed in Arkansas for millennia, and were harnessed by the technically advanced Atla-Ra of the Law of One for over 25,000 years. Remnants of the last surface pyramid still exist in the Toltec Mound State Park in Sacred, Arkansas, near hot springs and purposely within the crystal vortex. The Syrian Pleiadian Alliance have maintained an enormous subterranean pyramid below the Toltec Mounds since Atlantean times, as well as stations monitoring the Atlantean master crystals. It is among the reasons so many crafts are sensed over the crystal vortex. 3 such bases are in the Arkansas area to maintain the crystals. The 12-sun disk of Atlantis. These vector points are what may be termed as trajectory vehicles of double reality, containing great energy potential of multidimensionality, where dimensional realities merge. There are primary vector points across your planet, and Arkansas is one of them, and a vast number of subordinate vector points. The Atlantean sun disks are placed in areas of primary vectors. The 12 primary points of the Atlantean sun disk are: the sun disk 7 sites of the northern hemisphere. 1. Arkansas crystal vortex. 2. Scotland, Roslyn Chapel vortex. 3. Russia, Ural Mountain vortex at 51° latitude. 4. Russia, Lake Baikal vortex Siberia at 51 degrees. 5. Egypt, Israel, Giza to Temple Mount Vortex. 6. Sri Lanka. 7. China, Xi'an Pyramid. 5 sites of the Sun disk in the Southern Hemisphere. 1. Australia, Uluru. 2. Africa, Tanzania Mount Kilimanjaro. 3. Brazil Minas Gerais Vortex. 4. Bolivia, Lake Titicaca Vortex Island of the Sun. 5. Maria Tahiti, French Polynesia. Each of the 12 Sun disk have 12 satellites, and thus is your planet gridded in the 12144 networking of the base 12 squared. There are certain of these points that coordinate all dimensions, all realities. Some coordinate what may be termed as the space-time continuum, and in pure mathematics and sacred geometry are so placed in a manner that manifolds corridors of dimensional planes of the material realm into the antimatter realm, physical to non-physical, space to non-space, and time to non-time. Humanity are entering a new crystalline age, a crystalline phased matrix in the new Earth, but in truth it is a case of re-entry. For the golden age of Atlantis was such a matrix. And in the present, the masses of humanity do not consciously recognize the historical, factual validity of the Atlantean era. But on a subconscious level, all of you do know, and do acknowledge the veracity of Atlantis, because almost all of you were there. Yes, indeed, you were there. And we tell you that the golden era, the golden age of Atlantis, was a euphoric, beautifully harmonic phase of the duality Earth, of humanity. You often think the highest vibration achieved was in Lemuria, but we will tell you otherwise. Lemuria did have a high frequential vibration, as did all vectors and all souls experiencing pre-duality Earth. But pre-duality, non-polarity Earth was a dream state, a creative mental realm. It had no challenges, had no cause and effect aspects. For in non-polarity realms, opposites do not, and cannot exist. You did not have physical bodies in pre-duality Lemuria or in pre-duality Atlantis. And indeed Atlantis also existed in pre-duality Earth. Landforms were very different. You traveled by thought. You could pass through physical matter. You were experiencing physicality without being physical in the dream world of pre-duality Earth. Indeed, you were non-physical godlings. You came into and exited the Earth plane at will. You did not have linear lifetimes. You could bilocate and be at several places simultaneously. You were etheric, non-physical. And your Edgar Cayce has spoken of this, and masters this first entry. This first timing was approximately 10.5 million years ago. Although in truth, linear time did not truly exist in pre-polarity Earth, and in that sense assigning a beginning point is at best an aspect, an aspectual estimate, a subjective incomparable speculation that serves only as a veneer of juxtaposed approximation in linear application. For at that time, in that realm, there was no chronology of time as occurs in linear sequence. Space and matter were fluid. Space flowed. And time was non-time. Time was simultaneous, and thus fixed. It did not flow. Time was stationary, in a manner of speaking. Human souls entered the Earth plane in etheric non-physical format. And comparisons to that realm are invalid. Or in your vernacular, an apples to oranges comparison. Do you understand? The true realm of the duality phase of Earth began only after the fall of the firmament, at which time souls merged into physical matter, and the purposed university of Earth, the testing ground and curriculum of free will, of learning responsible creation in free will, in duality began. And this timing, this beginning is your true genesis, your true beginning. It serves as the only valid comparison, as the true apples-to-apples comparison of what was built, what was achieved in a free will reality. The Golden Age of Atlantis is indeed the highest achievement thus far in the duality realm. And it was a Camelot, a euphoric ideal that can and will indeed be recreated in time. In post-firmament Earth, the residents of Lemuria, Rama and Mu, did not rise to the divine levels of those achieved by the Law of One in Atlantis. So in this descriptive explanation, it is important to clarify that when Earth became the University of Duality, it was the Law of One, the beautiful family of the Law of One that achieved divine oneness within duality. Indeed, it was a marvelous success. The Golden Age of Atlantis was an achievement of astonishing proportion, and it was achieved by effort, by high intent followed by action. It was co-created, consciously co-created through awareness and group mind and unified effort. It was an exquisite beautiful era of love, harmony, art, music and high ideals. True oneness was achieved in a magnificent epoch, an altruistic Camelot, in which dreams were lived, lifetimes were lovingly fulfilled. And that now is but a faded myth, a sadly lost memory. But we tell you, it can, and it will, come again. But you must create it. And in this way, your memory of Paradise Lost can become a reality once again. In Paradise Found, Paradise Refound. And you are on that path, but it will require unity and effort, exactly as was required in the Golden Atlantis. You now have the tools, and your transition into crystal beings is a part of the ascending return. You must use this heightened energy to attune to the highest ideals, and take action to create and manifest the new Golden Age. And this is so important. It has been said that humans are a species with amnesia, and this is quite accurate in present application. In the sad demise of Atlantis, the human populace was vastly reduced in numbers as a result of the great floods that occurred in the rapid melting of the ice sheets, the quaking of the earth and the resulting massive tsunamis. The highly technical civilization of Atlantis, its grand cities and knowledge disappeared beneath the waters into the unfathomable silts and sands of time. And while isolated pockets of high civilization persisted for a time, humanity in large, devolved and began anew, starting from scratch as it were. And survival of the species gained a requisite dominance within the alert beta focus, which was necessary for existence and sustenance in a newly primordial and challenging environment of devolution. The masses that once knew arts, sciences and liberties of expressive pursuit, became engrossed in the devolution of basic survival, as the filters of the conscious mind over time removed from frontal brain the memory all that passed before. Kings ruled kingdoms. Dictators rose and fell as humanity fell deeply in the density of enduring perpetuation and primal subsistence. And while conditions gradually improved in the slow dance of linear time, there are yet new forms of diversion, hidden mental and attitudinal entrapments that prevent sovereignty within a mindset that measures success according to monetary gain. All that glitters is not gold. In much of the world of the 21st century, very few people have true sovereignty. The masses are seduced by media and intoxicated by quantity. Many are enslaved by debt. Governments are becoming corporations based on profit. The common man, the 99%, are employees of corporate governments, not citizens sharing in the commonwealth. Culturally, dreamers are scorned. Workers are praised. The balance that allows for both is somewhat skewed in a societal system in which the 99% are taught how to work but not how to live. Every shift in consciousness must first overcome the constricting limitations of its cultural programming. And if the resistance is deeply ingrained, the shifts may be impaired. Masters. In 2015, year 3 of the New Earth, much is changing. The crystalline shift of the Aquarian Renaissance assists humanity in an awakening to higher dimension, in awakening into the ability to maintain a greater balance in the requisite harmony of beta consciousness alertness, and the dreaming creatorship of theta state consciousness. And this is important, for indeed the Earth has expanded purposefully at this time into 12 dimensions. Crystalline Phi stimulates the pineal. Crystalline knowledge is a key part of the emerging new paradigm, although in truth it is an ancient knowledge, forgotten but not new. Now, when mankind decides to devote mainstream study into what is termed the mental science of dimensional and crystalline aspects of transport and bilocation, and indeed it is a science with laws that can be learned, practiced and fine-tuned, then visitations into parallels and vectors within space-time and intra-realms of higher states of consciousness will become more accessible, less happenstance and occur by intent. It is time to now expand your focus, and to relearn what has been forgotten. To reawaken the conscious theta dreamer. For once mankind learns and masters mental physics, then humanity will be liberated, vastly liberated from the filtering illusion, the duality camouflage of physical pattern. Indeed you are just starting to understand how the Merkana, crystalline light body, when tuned by mind as the builder into the crystalline field, unlocks this key. This ability is now greatly enhanced as your 144 grid and its networking of crystalline energy completes its unfolding in the new 12D paradigm of the new planet Earth. The crystalline grid will offer great opportunity of advancement to those of you willing to devote focus to this divine science of mental manifestation and what you term astral, or better phrased as higher dimensional travel. It is time to include the scientific with divine, to seek theta, while maintaining grounding in beta. Both can be harmonized. And in such harmony you will discover the ability of co-creation within the earth plane. Mind is the builder. But let us be clear, crystal clear, the third dimension is not, repeat, not disappearing. Nor is 3D mean to disappear in the new earth. For your earth realm lessening occurs in the cause and effect plane of 3D duality. But in the new crystalline paradigm, the arc swing of duality is lessening, and you have the ability, with feet grounded in the first 3 dimensions, to reach higher and rise into higher dimensions of non-polarity, from 4D to 12D while on the earth plane. And this was how reality was harmonized in post-firmament, the duality phases of Atlantis. Edgar Cayce and the return of the Law of One. Your great soul and gifted psychic seer, Edgar Cayce, is a prolific and very credible source of vast and accurately detailed information on Atlantis. His information has indeed influenced many seekers into the beneficial acceptance of Atlantis, and the lessons of that once great culture and society. And as we have stated, although most of humanity as yet largely view Atlantis as an illusionary legend of a long-forgotten and fabled era, it truly matters not, because Atlantis lingers in defiance of the accepted theory of your masses and mainstream academia. Whether or not mainstream anthropological academia accepts that it was real is something of a moot point, for it remains indelibly imprinted in the unconscious psyche of the human race. It remains so because it was not a myth. Indeed, most of you were there. And that is why throughout your post-deluge history, adepts from Plato to Edgar Cayce have spoken of this monumental epoch and potent era. Such sharings trigger the psyche, for it was an imposing dichotomy of the grand and grandiose, of the magnificent and the terrible. And we tell you that researchers such as Graham Hancock, Dr. Robert Schoch and Andrew Collins are providing compelling evidence that will in time alter the stance of academics and open renewed research into the factual evidence of Atlantis. And dear ones, removing the shadow of your true history and true heritage is far more important than you may realize. For in the uncovering, memories are more easily recalled, and in this process there are points and energies to be gained, understandings to be garnered, guilts to be released, and lessons to be learned. It is through learning from the past that you prevent recurrence of the errors, and recover the beneficial attributes of what was successful. And there are similarities of Atlantis in today's society. And those of you of the Law of One can gather and allow the Golden Age to resurface. And we tell you that gathering triggers the memories. And the convenance of the Law of One should be and will be recovered and applied. Atlantis was a dichotomy of two factions within its extraordinary technological society. The Law of One of Poseidon and the sons of Belial of Arion. The former, as we have shared, were highly evolved spiritually. The latter were focused on power and greed. It is not our purpose in this channel to go deeply into the history and fall of Atlantis. This has been shared partially in past channels, and will be soon released in much greater details in the forthcoming book on Atlantis that we are channeling to Tyberonn. But we will tell you that the Law of One and the benevolent extraterrestrials were aware of the devolution, the fall. That is precisely why clues and triggers have been left for you in halls of records, in crystals and crystal skulls, in sacred sites, crop circles and channelings, such as the work referenced from clear seers such as Edgar Cayce. The new earth enables you to see with the vision of the third eye, and that is why the benevolent use of crystalline tools are being brought into availability. They can open the pineal. It is why 2012 brought forth a new era. It is why solar radiation is changing your planet and shifting your DNA. It is why many of the Law of One are returning en masse. It is why so many of you are called to reunions of the Law of One. It is why you are called to sacred Arkansas. For Arkansas was a colony, a crystal colony of the Atla-Ra, the benevolent scientist priests and priestesses of the spiritual and matriarchal Law of One. It is the sacred promise of the Law of One, that this time the crystals will not be misused. And to be clear, as we have previously shared, the misuse of the benevolent crystals was not from the Law of One, but rather occurred when the great crystals and magnificent crystal systems were taken over in a cunning political maneuver by the Aryan sons of Belial. Reference Metatron channel on the fall of Atlantis, in Tyberonn's books Metatron Speaks and Alchemy of Ascension. It was a sad ending, etched into your psyche and cellular memory, and even your Bible refers to the terrible and awesome crystal in the book of Exodus. King James, Webster and English World, Biblical Translations. Editor insert. Ezekiel chapter 1 verse 22, quote, "And the likeness of the firmament upon the heads of the living creatures was as the color of the terrible crystal, stretched forth over their heads above." Unquote. From the King James and Webster Bibles. We also add that the word awesome is used in the place of the word terrible in other translations. In truth, under the guidance of the Law of One, the use was awesome, and in the destructive hands of the Belial group, terrible is perhaps the more appropriate wording. Your Edgar Cayce spoke of the Atlantean soul group of Poseidon, the Law of One, as having achieved the highest level of spiritual harmony ever achieved on the duality earth plane, higher than any other era of Atlantis, Lemuria, Egypt, Og, Kumari Kuden Rama, or Greece. The Law of One interfaced with the Arcturians, Syrians, Pleiadians and the Phallidae and Cetaceans of Sirius B. The Poseidons were the golden race, the pure of heart, of spiritual oneness. They were of bronze skin and golden wiry hair. They were tall beings, between 12 and 16 feet in height. They composed the Atla-Ra, the scientist priestesses and priest. They used crystals to travel terrestrially and extraterrestrially through mentally manifested bilocation in Merkana bioplasmic form. And as Edgar Cayce shared, crystals in various forms and generations were used to communicate with the infinite and travel out of body. Phi crystals and certain minerals and gems absolutely facilitate visioning, absolutely enable the advanced seeker to travel to higher dimensions. And in this factual attribute, they are lights, they are noble allies, assistants to your journey and illuminators of the path to your return home. They are indeed tools of utterly brilliant possibilities, but it is you, ultimately you, that is required to be the co-creator of your world, your life and the new golden age. As in the golden age of Atlantis, crystals were incredible tools, used to communicate with higher realms. And that time is returning. In the new earth, the crystalline age is returning. And in time the crystals will again be used in the way of the law of one, the sacred way. The way of the divine sacred, integrally unified with sacred science. As they were used in the sacred ark, and indeed many of the coded crystals of the law of one are now awakened in Arkansas, and in Brazil. And the ark is carrying the codes. Underneath Arkansas are unimaginable crystals, offering magnificent energy. We share with you the reading. The great crystal was described by Edgar Cayce in the below passage. Editor insert of Edgar Cayce reading. Quote, "The great Atlantean crystal was originally in the form of a six-sided figure in which the light appeared as the means of communication between infinity and the finite, or the means whereby there were communications with those divine forces from the outside the universe. And so these crystals were used to communicate outside the body, into the realm of the saints. The form of the crystal had many generations and were changed in time to more complex forms and designed fitted to specific purpose." Edgar Cayce, unquote. Tools of Mastery. Masters. Crystals are living allies, extraordinary powerful living sentient tools of mastery. And they are here to assist you. The knowledge and utilization of Phi crystals and indeed properties and attributes of all crystalline forms absolutely provide an intricate and beneficial tool for accelerated and enhanced aperture to end of your higher self, the divine self of mastery realms. These offer abilities to communicate with the infinite into the vast inner and outer worlds of the celestial. They are indeed in offering a sacred tool and aspect of the law of one into the new crystalline ascension of the new earth in the energy of the 144 crystalline grid. For 2015 and beyond. Indeed, in the third trimester of 2015, meteors, 7 sacred crystalline meteors, amplified and spawned of comets, will embellish the energy to an apex in November. And that is precisely why we have directed the gathering to this time in the sacred ark. For at this time the codes will maximize. In the crystalline energy of the new earth, the use of crystals and gems is quite embellished, and these are tools that will offer many benefits, worthy assistance in the shift to your divine crystalline nature. Arkansas was a sacred crystal colony of the law of one. And as Edgar Cayce predicted, the law of one are returning, and this time, the crystals will not be allowed to fall into the wrong hands. This time they will not be misused. The clarion calls to the law of one. It is time to gather. Indeed, it is a sacred oath, and a promise to be kept. Indeed, it is a soul contract of the law of one, and accordingly for many, a sacred promise to be kept. Masters, do you hear the call? End of Part 2. Coming in the final portion. Part 3. The Meteoric Influence. Crystalline Waters. Detailing the sun disk activation and the primary nodes of the crystal vortex.